Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Today, we're discussing the immersive sound of Baldur's Gate 3. If you're unfamiliar with this wildly popular video game, it is a multiplayer fantasy RPG with virtual dice rolling, not unlike the familiar tabletop version of Dungeons & Dragons. And since Larian Studios released it officially in late 2023, it has become one of the most successful and highest rated video games of all time. One of the reasons behind its immense popularity is the incredible soundtrack. And at this year's Game Developers Conference, our guest host today, Dolby's Alistair Hirst, held a panel discussion with the audio director of Larian Studios, Stefan Randelshofer, to tell us all that went into the seemingly global effort to create the rich sonic atmosphere of Faerun and beyond.
I'm Alistair Hirst. I do game developer relationships at Dolby. Before that, I spent 29 years in the game industry, mostly as an audio director. And I'd like to introduce Stefan Randelshofer, who I'm talking with today, and I'll let him explain a bit of his background.
Yeah, hi, I'm Stefan. I'm the audio director at Larian, took care of Baldur's Gate 3. My background is I was working on TV and movie in the end of 90s, beginning of 2000, then figured out what you can do with game audio, interactive stuff, and I was like super amazed about that. And since then, it's just game audio for EA, Piranha Bytes. I worked on Risen 3, maybe some of you played that. And at Ubisoft, worked on several titles at Ubisoft, from Anno 1800 to, was also working together with Alec on Avatar back then, and the Assassin's Creed Nexus was a game that got shipped this year as well, which I was working on. South Park: The Fractured But Whole, if someone knows about that one, together with Nick from the San Francisco studio here. And then I switched over to Larian, and since then I'm taking care of the team, the audio team at Larian. Yeah, that's
cool. Me. All right. So we're here, obviously, to talk about Baldur's Gate 3, which, in case you haven't played it, most people have, is a fantasy RPG set in the D&D universe. I gotta say, as I've been playing this game, it's not the type of game I usually play. I usually play more Twitch-oriented games, but I really got into it because of that slower pace, and you kind of sink into it. And you know, obviously, the sound is a big part of that, right? To just suck you in and get you immersed into that world. So it's a slower-paced, turn-based game, which gives you that time to engage with the characters. And then I think part of the huge appeal of this game is, you know, the scripts and how well the dialogue has been recorded, and, you know, the character stuff. I mean, that's it. As I was playing, having worked on games where it didn't work so well, I was like, wow, if they'd messed this up, it would have really been painful. But this actually is such a big part of the game and is part of what makes it so compelling. And then, yeah, just the ambiences, the world sound effects, the music, all that stuff in Atmos just, you know, sucks you right in. So for those who haven't played it, or just for a refresher, I'm going to just play a quick little trailer video of some of the gameplay so you get a sense of it before we get into speed.
To move. These boots have seen everything.
We best deal with them, or their healer will be kept very busy indeed.
Our futures.
No, you just care about your stupid apprenticeship.
Take that. And again. Swing and swing and...
A mind flayer tadpole? I'll do what I can. Come, follow me. I might be able to help. We need to be quick. This way.
Your minds fuse, lusting for something that is gone.
So, for starters, let's it was a bit unusual for where you came in on the project. You want to kind of describe the development process and how that worked for you, high level?
Yeah, sure. So in general, maybe some of you have already seen a talk of Sven today and of my colleagues, of Jason. They all talked a little bit about the development of the game. For me, I was starting at November 22. So basically, I joined the project 9 months before it got shipped. Because the game was sounding good. The content, and you can imagine how much content that is. I would say most of you played it. I now can say that. So, and there is so much content. There's so much stuff going on. There's so many systems. There are so many places you can go. There are so many people you can talk to. You most likely already heard that we had around about 2 million voice files, words written. We had 170 hours of cinematics. We had 1,100 spells that we needed to take care of. All of that stuff. It's a big effort of the whole Larian team. So everybody is like producing all of this real cool stuff, and we need to put a shit ton of audio on that. So there's a lot of stuff. And then I'm coming in, I'm joining, and I'm getting asked to, hey, and now we need to, finalize it, bring the mix in, make it sound right for, ship it. And the first things that I was thinking about were just sitting down and really, playing the game for a few weeks and thinking about what we can do about that and what we need and can improve. And this took me, I would say, the analysis 2 to 3 months, forming a plan, analysis, and forming a plan. And then I would say in January, February 2023, it was where I really kicked in with the team, double-checked what we can do, what we can still improve, and how we do the mix for the game, because it's a huge game. And a lot of things can happen because it's all about you as the player. So it's all about the agency of the player. So basically, you can decide to do anything. And I think that almost none of you can share this exact same story. You have met the same characters, but you're not, you never have this like, I was that character and then I had this conversation. Oh, what? It did happen in a different way for you? You have all of those conversations normally. So you need to take care of this in a systemic manner. And this is where I kicked in and where I thought about how to do that. And then we needed to ship it a month earlier because Starfield basically was at the same point in time, and as Sven told today, we needed to push it back for a month, so it made it a little bit more stressful. But I think so in general, the whole Larian team got it done. We shipped a really good game where all of us are very proud of, and I think also the audio team really got all of that covered. So really, shout out to my team. They really made that work as well. Yeah.
Cool. What would you describe the design aesthetic of the audio for the game as?
For me, in the beginning, I was playing it and analyzing what type of sounds do we have and what do we do. And at the end, I came up with some, okay, for the environment, we need to double check that this is, it's useful for this for the storytelling. It supports that stuff. So all of that was the obvious choices. But the point was, the project was going on for 6 years or 5.5 years or whatever at that point I joined. So what I got handed over was basically a really big functional game already. And then it was not about me deciding that we change a lot of that content because you have 6 months. It's not about like, ooh, I would say this would be cool if you have a little bit more crisp sounds here in the, not really working out that way. So the point was rather, how can we facilitate the cool sound design that is already done, because there was a shit ton of audio. There was so much stuff. And it was, how can we bring this together? Because for me, as an audio director, my philosophy is that I'm not responsible for music. I'm not responsible for sound design. I'm not responsible for voiceover. I'm responsible for the soundscape. All of my team members are doing separate things, and there's Bobby, our composer. He brings in the cool music, and there are people that we work with for recording voiceover from Pit Stop. They're bringing all of those kick-ass recordings from all of the cool actors that we worked with. And then it's all about bringing this together and make a consistent soundscape. And the soundscape is basically what I think is the result that, as an audio director, I need to take care of. If I go into all of the details, yes, I can do that, and it's a fair approach for colleagues as well. But for me, I always try to step back a little bit and think about what is the end result that I'm shipping, and that is the soundscape. That is what's in your headphones, what's on the speakers. So that's the product I'm responsible for as an audio director.
Quite well. Perhaps our survival isn't such a distant prospect.
So it's a huge world, right? And trying to manage all that, and it can be a challenge, I know. So I'm just curious, what systems did you have to develop to try and manage all that content and make it make sense?
A lot of the systems were already in existence. So, I mean, when you playback a cinematic, there is body movement and there is Foley on that. That is, for example, this is an auto Foley system. This is basically based on the body movement and the physics of the body movement and how fast you move and what type of armor or clothes you're wearing, therefore Foley sounds, basically. Those are systems that helped us with a lot of things. There was the music system that Bobby created. There was an environment setup that was not too systemic, to be honest, because this game was all about like those handcrafted environments, all of them detailed. So it is more of the sound design people sitting down and really placing sounds there and make it, really be crafting it carefully instead of having a generalized solution in that case. I've worked on different solutions on different games where it was all about more procedural sound environment, but here I think it was a fair choice to go for the handcrafted idea, because that fits more to what Baldur's Gate is all about in that case. Yeah.
So for a game with that camera perspective is, I think, probably the most challenging to deal with. I'm just curious, where you put the listener position for this game, how you manage that, especially since the camera can move in, pull back, that always presents challenges.
Yeah, that's the classic 3C question and part of that. So basically, what's the camera angle? How do you work with the game, and how do you look into the world, basically? And how you look into the world defines how you listen into the world. And in those games, and I worked a lot on RTS game, Anno 1800, I don't know if any of you played Anno. It's a top-down, you're 300 meters above ground, and you can zoom in a few milliseconds to basically first person. So, that is the thing that I always worked with, RTS and RPGs, where you have more of a third person, or even like a camera that looks down to the ground, easy perspective kind of style. And the point is, the listener position is super important. You cannot deal with, hey, first person, therefore camera is listener. This is something that you cannot, it doesn't work out. If you do that, you also have a very boring mix in the positioning. And if you go for surround sound, it will be kind of boring, because what you do is just having all of the stuff right in front of you, which basically narrows down your field of sounds that are playing back to there, so basically it's like you can just put all of that in the center channel as well and you will be good. So therefore, my solution to that always is having the camera, having a look at, and having a relative position of the listener to it, which means there is always, it depends on the game, 70, 30%, something like that, so that the listener is like right in between of that, and it adapts to your movement. It is in a relative position, and based on the Atmos and the rotation, you can you drag the listener sometimes closer to you, because when you look further in the background, you want the listener to be, again, you being you, looking into the world. So basically we have an adaptive listener that follows along what you're doing, which helps you very much out with looking down, the listener there, and it already takes care of a more stereo depth, basically, a more broader stereo setup, and the possibility of positioning that. But it's not just stereo in our case, it's the full surround thing that was important to me. Which is the reason we're doing the Dolby Atmos stuff, by the way.
That's right. So yes, 6 months before final, we started our conversations. And so what prompted you to start getting in contact with us and start talking and doing your due diligence on what it would take to get into Atmos?
At a certain point, I was thinking about how do I approach this whole mix now? And one of the things that I thought is important was having a certain clarity and focusing on certain things in the game and make it more readable. What we had before was a more front stereo mixed game with a little bit of background sounds, So I have seen it as a missed chance of being more immersed into what we do. And the big difference nowadays, because as I told you, I'm doing this for quite some time, and there was always the argument, because I was always a big fan of surround sound, but the big argument most of the time was like, yeah, but who owns a surround sound set? And there is a little bit of truth to that. There are more people than you think, but not enough to justify like everything needs to be full surround. There's always this, and a lot of people have headphones on. But the point is now with all of the possibilities that you have nowadays, from a Dolby Atmos plugin on your PC, you just go down there and you use the Dolby Atmos, or of course, those are other products, but there are other possibilities from Windows that you could use. Windows Sonic, that is a possibility. But the point is, your headphones are becoming via the HRTF and the spatial plugin, becoming a playback possibility for a full Dolby Atmos setup, where I really listen to stuff from it's above me, it's around me, and it's really precisely positioned by the 3D audio objects. And I think there are also more people than you think with at least those Dolby Atmos bars now. So in the company, in the beginning, I was talking about it, and even some of the director colleagues, they were like, yeah, at home I play with it projects it to the ceiling, and therefore I have the sound. And that works fairly well. I think it's really good. And the point is, you have now a bigger audience and can reach a lot of people with those plugins. In addition to that, we're also shipping on Xbox, we're shipping on PS5. The Xbox is Dolby Atmos supported for quite some time, and 3D audio supported in other ways as well. And then there is PS5 they even have their own chip. There is the Tempest chip on it, if some of you people know and are more into audio. So there is a complete architecture for 3D audio that allows you to listen to those 3D audio objects. And when you use Facilitate Wise or other plugins, but Wise in that case was our solution, you can make that work automatically, and you can facilitate those 3D audio objects, and that gives you so many chances to be more immersed in what you're doing. And especially in a world like Baldur's Gate, there's so much stuff going on where in the city, I don't know if you experienced that in a surround sound setup, the city, when people talk around you, you have the wallers sound, the talking people from everywhere. You have a cool combat, listen to the combat. I mean, all of that stuff, if you have one of the spells, flyby stuff. So it's really, it gives you the perspective of being there. So therefore, that was the reason for me to go into this Dolby setup. And I was initially pretty scared about that because I wanted to have that, but it was like a really big thing. But then we had a big pro-con list of should we go for that, should we do that? And there was, in the beginning it was, too risky, 6 months to go for shipping, stupid idea, don't do it. And then we had other topics coming up that were like an additional update that we needed to do for Wise, which included an easier way of mixing that. There were the possibilities, also the support for PlayStation was something. And at the end it was like, okay, our mixing architecture was okay, but it did not help us to mix the game the way I wanted it to be mixed, because we have a lot of adaptive systems in there, because there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of different sounds, so you cannot just go and fire all of that stuff. You need to have rule sets and systems to mix it properly. So therefore, we needed to have a better architecture of our mixing hierarchy. And we went full in. I was sitting down with the team. We talked about that, and then I picked one of the team members, and we were sitting down, Matthias and I, for 1-2 weeks, discussed that, Miro boards with flowcharts. How do we want to do that? Because what we wanted to do is getting rid of the complete mixing architecture of the game as I got it handed over. It was like, okay, you know what? Tabula rasa, let's start from scratch. We have 6 months left, so we're good. So never mind. But the point was the positive sides were very much there. And then we took this decision. And I think this is one of those things to plan ahead properly and really think those things through. Because the point at the end was we planned it for 2 weeks. We thought about what do we want to achieve? What ducking systems do we need to have? What interactive adaptive mixing systems do we need to have? How do we want to set the whole thing up? We thought this through properly, and then we had okay, today we're checking out Perforce. Nobody can reach Wise. Sound won't be there for 1 or 2 days. Matthias went all in. He even created a script for getting rid of the old mixing architecture and populate a new mixing architecture based on the script. So basically it was just like, okay, running a script. Everything was there, checking in, sending over, and the point was it worked. There were minor bits and pieces here and there, but really like stuff that was fixed in 1 or 2 days. But in general, we switched over from a complete different mixing architecture with basically thousands of sound files of different kind and ways to the mix that we wanted to have the possibilities to mix the game better, to have more immersion, and to have a better setup. That was basically the idea. Cool.
I just want to point out, Dolby Atmos has been on PC and Xbox for quite a while, since the launch of the X and S. PlayStation, in case you missed the announcement, added support for Dolby Atmos last year. So you can get Dolby Atmos out of the HDMI outputs on PlayStation 5. So we have it across those platforms. And then one thing for people who haven't been involved with this in terms of bus structure for Atmos, I mean, basically you have your master bus, then underneath that you would have your beds for your 7.1.4 Atmos array. You would have your objects bus, and then a pass-through bus, which is for things that you don't want spatialized. And at the very basic level, if you set up that bus structure early in your project, unlike in the last 6 months, it's quite easy. You just check the 3D box, and you'll be up and ready and running and ready to be in Dolby Atmos. So I just want to make sure people knew that. What challenges did you encounter? I mean, it sounds like there weren't many because you guys planned so carefully, and this is the advantage of working with really smart people, right? Like Matthias is people who are able to prepare those scripts ahead of time. Yeah, the whole team. But for this particular switch, who knows how to handle the scripting to do the switch over so that it went smoothly, because there was a lot of preparation. That was pretty smart. How do you feel adding support for Dolby Atmos affected the game? Did you get out of it what you were hoping for?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's so. As said, there were different reasons, and all of them pointed to doing this new architecture. On the one hand side, we had the possibility for Dolby Atmos and having this more immersed setup that I really enjoyed, and I do have basically, I think I have the smallest Dolby Atmos setup in Europe or in the world at home, because I basically built very quickly a Dolby Atmos setup in my studio, that worked out, but also we tested it with the plugins, and a lot of people in the company that we handed over those plugins, they tested it as well, and I think it was an improvement, because the positive outcome of that was that I think we have a more clear mix. We have a better understanding of what's going on. It helps you with the gameplay as well. You understand your surrounding better, and the whole mixing architecture in general empowered my team. And there are, by the way, we did a Wise Up on Air talk last week, Matthias and I did a talk at the Audio Kinetic booth yesterday. Those will be online, so if you want to have more infos about the details, how we did that and which specific systems and all of the tech mumbo jumbo, you can go there and listen to that. But it helped us to have, for example, to develop ducking systems that are above the standard ducking, because normally ducking means, I think we have a more mixed audio, not only audio people in here, so ducking basically means you have audio and another signal turns down the signal, so environment gets quieter because of explosion, very simply. So this is like ducking away, you know, not the duck. Basically that's an idea, but that is all about volume. That is just like making it quieter. What I wanted to have, and what I talked for quite some time with the team, was like, hey, what you normally do when you do a proper mix, you go for and you do something which is called frequency juggling. You're figuring out where in the mix, on which frequency ranges are certain objects or sounds should live, basically, and how they interact with each other. When you have a well-mixed music track, for example, you have the possibility, and you hear the bass properly, you hear the guitar properly, you hear the drums properly, because people took very much care about where they live, so that they do not they're not ramping up the same volume on the same frequency and being very loud there and therefore quiet here. This is those mix are not readable. So for us, or for me, it was super important to have a frequency-based ducking, and we came up with a system. So basically, we exploited Wise as it works at the moment, and made a nice possibility of reading out which frequency we have in a certain spell, and if we don't like that frequency, we can go there and take it down. So you can basically go there and not just lower the volume, you lower the volume of a certain frequency and let the rest of the sounds still play back, which helped a lot with music, for example, to work together with Bobby's music, because that is important, and when it is there, it should shine, it should be in front. And the short moment that you have a big explosion, a big spell going off, you need the frequency range for that spell. So we said, okay, we don't want them to live in the same frequency range. We decided that the spells are living a little bit more on the high and low area, and the middle is always free for the music. So basically, when you have those big explosions, the energy comes from the subwoofer, from the bass, and the energetic sounds are on the high end. And this is true for all of the spells in all of the combat stuff, actually.
And being done dynamically, right? Which is the big difference of what we have to do in games versus the film people who have it really easy compared to what we have to do in real time, right? All right, let's move to the ambient sound design, because that I feel is a big part of the game and helping to pull you into this world and increase the immersion. It's like so tell us about the ambience design and how you built those immersive soundscapes.
Yeah, already mentioned a little bit that I had different approaches in different games, where I was like more of a what you see is what you get, and the ambience basically designs itself based on what you see. But that was, for example, for Anno or for other games, because the game adapts and you can change the environment. In this case here, we do have very predetermined environments in places, and I think as a lot of you played it, you know a lot of those places, they are very different. They need to have a good understanding, and you build mood with that environment. There is also information about what's going on, but in general, a lot of in our game, we use it for setting the mood of the specific scene. And therefore, the sound designers working on that, they really went in there and were really specific about that and built this handcrafted environment. As our environments are built very handcrafted, very detailed, and very all of our artists taking care that this makes sense for that scene, for that fight, for this area. There's a lot of thinking into that. It's not just like whatever, building here, stone wall there. Cool. There's all of that is working together with gameplay, with narrative. There's a lot of stuff, and we took care that it works together with the rest of the team. So this is really this bigger Larian team effort, actually, that we're looking into in that way. Right.
So one interesting thing about the game is because it's a turn-based game, the cadence is slower than a lot of other games potentially. So you know, what did you think about in terms of the sound design as it applied to the cadence? Because you had more room for those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, that was, of course, that helps a lot. If you ever worked on a RTS game where basically everybody can do anything at any given point in time, and you have like piling up of combat sound or shooter, all of that is real time. There are even different methods that you need to apply for having a proper mix. A positive thing for a turn-based game is that you can go all in on the spells. So if you listen to the spells, you know that I really wanted them to be so. Going back to when I talked about what I wanted to achieve, there was also Sven in the beginning. He was like, I wanted to be impactful, rich, juicy. That were like main terms that he used, and I was like, okay, he really, he wants to have it punchy. There needs to be some energy in there. So what do we do? And the point is, we really went full in on those spells. Some of them were already sounding that way. Some of them we basically upgraded in a systemic manner with the new mixing architecture. But all of them are very intense, and when you look at the loudness of the game, we really maxing that out. There is normally there is a certain range that you can have, and that makes sense on a platform. So we are all in the official platforms. There's also rule sets for that for TV. Normally, in America, it's called CALM, which helps you with a certain loudness. I think minus 22. It's minus 22 LUFS in America, and you have like 9 LU for the dynamic range. In games, the cool thing is we can go a little bit higher. I think we aimed for 15. So the point is, you have this environment, and when you come to the combat kicks in. The combat is really, the spells are powerful. They can be loud, they are intense, and they are impactful. They're really, if you go there, you have the sound going on, the juiciness coming from enemies, and we are, it's you can play the game 18 and above. It's R-rated in the States. Is it? What's the term for you can play a game above? 17 plus? Okay. So you need to be an adult to play the game. You should not let this game. Not a good idea. It's not our core audience. Our core audience is a little bit older. And the idea is that you go all in. So basically the combat is really gruesome. Partly you have blood, all of that, and we really worked on the blood. It's really, if you listen to that, there is gore in there.
Juicy?
It's juicy, yeah. It's pretty juicy. And as said, the impact. So that was really important, and that gave me the possibility to be impactful at the time that we wanted to be, because with the new mixing architecture that we built up for that, we had the possibility to mix it in a way that was more suitable for what we wanted to achieve with the game.
Cool. Let's move to dialogue, which is obviously a huge part of the game, just, you know, massive in terms of a number of assets. In terms of sound quality, you know, sometimes the dialogue is dry, sometimes it's wet. I'm curious, you know, what guided you there for, you know, how you were mixing that?
So in general, fun fact, those are just for the people, for the audio people in here, game audio people, those are just, I think, like 7 events for the whole game. And we basically exchange the content on the fly based on where you are, but the playback events are just, I think, like 7 specific events, because the idea is that it needs to be systemic. And there are things and decisions that I took for where do we want to have more reverb applied, where do we go. Normally, for me, it's important when you go for the hey, this is the environment, this is the immersive part that we want to have with, and we took a lot of effort, as I just told you, about making it immersive, making it something where you're really sucked into, also with audio. You normally go the route that you apply the environment reverb and really being there. And this is what we do with most of the dialogue. So it depends. You can kick off a cutscene on different places, and it will always be having the reverb and the environment sounds of that place, basically. That was important to me. It's not like you know, standardized or something. So you can be at certain places where there's a lot of reverb applied, and there is places where there is less. So it does not always depend on the general event. It depends on the place you are also. Yeah. In addition to that, there are, for example, the narrator. You all know her, and she's telling you all of those background infos. And for me, at least, it was always this. It's a little bit the dungeon master, basically. It's D&D basically, and for me it was tabletop. So I thought in the mix, it's a cool thing to apply that very dry, because that is basically somebody talking from above. And the fact, as a matter of fact, when we did the mix in London at Molinar, we were sitting down and there was like, I think we need to give it a little bit more a special treatment. And so the narrator, if you play in Dolby, and if you play in surround with a Dolby Atmos setup with height speakers, which means 4 speakers on top of you, or depending on the setup that you have, speakers from above, the narrator is always coming from above, because basically it's a tabletop. So the narrator always talks from above. It's like this figure that this god figure that talks down to you and tells you what's going on, because she knows. Yeah, so that is one of those things, and then it's about the reverb, and it's about it's a normal thing. I think for me it was important to use that in a way that you express if you have a close-up, and you have all of the acknowledgements and banter. So when you send someone and then, yeah, those shoes have seen everything, you know, I think a lot of you people know that sentence, kind of, and those are more of the stuff that you say in your head. So this is also more dry than a dialogue, because the dialogue is really in the world, and the other one is more you mumbling to yourself a little bit, and yeah, shoes I've seen.
Abomination. This is your end.
Your head throbs and your skin tingles. Visions rush past. A dragon's wing, a silver sword, and a flash of your face seen through the strange woman's eyes.
My head. What is this? Skvar. You are no thrall. Vlaakith blesses me this day. Together, we might survive.
I want to bounce back a bit when you talked about the mixing. I think with Atmos, I think part of the reason why adoption is gaining so much momentum is that, you know, you can have the full Atmos experience with the full array, but it also will translate if it gets folded down to 5.1 or stereo. And you mentioned there that you'd gone to Molinar for for the final mixes. But before that, during development, you had your Atmos mix in your room. But can you describe how you were doing, the mixing and
Oh, yeah.
how you're doing that with your very distributed team?
Yeah, that is really a thing. So you need to understand that Larian, we have a lot of studios all around the world. The audio team is spread between Quebec, Dublin, and London. I'm sitting in Düsseldorf in Germany, and I visit my team all the time, and we need to work together. We even have team members in Vancouver. So we facilitating the idea of having the possibility to work 24 hours around the world, but without having overtime, but just people really having time because it's their time zone. So we really work with what we got there, and I think it has a lot of positive sides to do that. And there is this one time window where we had the possibility to mix, because I normally want to do an audio director mixing session, which means I'm sitting down with one of the team member playing the game and one of the team member mixing the game, and we talk about it. And so we had this mixing session ongoing. And the cool thing is, within Larian, we do have something like a streaming service, so we can stream what we do at the moment in high quality, a little bit like our internal Twitch, so to speak. And there is even the possibility to have a 5.1 mix sent around. Didn't work out for Dolby Atmos. That's something you need to take care of in the future, that this is more standardized, okay?
Yep.
But on our end, we had the 5.1, and the idea is that in our case, there was Robin playing the game in Quebec, one of our sound designer, Matthias in Vancouver listening to the stream. I'm in Düsseldorf listening to the stream. All of us listen to it in 5.1. Having a Slack call in the background or a Google Meet call in the background. And then Matthias in Vancouver connects to Wise, the running game in the Quebec studio, and basically in real time can mix what is going on the PC in Quebec while I'm listening to it and saying, hey, can we try this? Can we do that? That would be a good idea. Can you solo this? How could we fix that? And this is how we worked our way through the whole thing. Because it is a big team with a worldwide setup, and you need to find some pipelines and solution that simply works. It's all about getting stuff done, which is one of my things. I studied audio in Salzburg in Austria, and the head of this study course that I was attending, she was always talking about something that we call in Germany Fertigstellungsmerkmal, which basically means Fertigstellung is finalizing, and Fertigstellungskompetenz and competence. It's basically finalizing and having the competence to do that. Basically, getting shit done. The point about that is, if you're creative, you know the moment where you're like, I could do this and I could do a little bit over here, and it is not fully as intended, and I would love to do this and that. And there is this Pareto principle with the 80-20 idea, and you need to learn as a creative to find the point where you can stop and call it done, basically, and finalizing it. And of course, it would be better to sit together maybe in our internal mixing stage and mix that, and that might be a part of the future. But at the moment where you need to finalize something, you need to find solutions, and it's about finding solutions and not just whine about, hey, we don't have this at the moment, we can't, how should we mix that, I don't know. It's about finding ways with the tools that you got at your disposal at the moment. And this includes me setting up a Dolby Atmos setup in basically 2 weeks, like, just getting some Genelec speakers, drilling some holes in my ceiling, and just having a Dolby Atmos setup to do the first mixing, because it was a quick decision and a quick turnaround on that one. And then like, okay, we need to have a Dolby Atmos setup. So basically I just put up the speakers, got it done, and it worked out. Is that the best studio setup? No. Is that the best studio ever? No, not at all. did it do the trick to give me the possibilities to understand if the positioning works well and if what we wanted to achieve kind of is going into the right direction? Yes, absolutely. And then we can bring this to a bigger studio like Molinar, where we have a proper setup, a really good studio, and doing the mixing there and going for the details of the mix, for the for the small bits and pieces. But I think it's all about the Fertigstellungskompetenz, and it's something that a lot of us should think about, because the coolest game ideas that you have in your head are worth basically nothing if you don't finalize that game and it becomes just a thing. I still do have a complete Logic recording session of a complete album that I started 1996 that I still did not finalize. A complete fucking album that I did not. It's still there, but I did not finalize it. So yeah, I learned my lessons.
Cool. So the point there, that the takeaway is that you can have a distributed team where some people, might be remote and they're listening on their headphones, and then you have your audio director with his Atmos system, at the level that he had it, and then for that final pass, you can go to the full-blown studio and do your final. How long did you spend at Molinar?
Altogether, 2 weeks, because we were really well prepared. We came in, we knew what we wanted to fix and what we did not have the chance to do with the setups that we had. Yeah. We did a lot, and then we knew we had a list. We worked through that list on a very clear manner, and then the 24-hour thing that I told you kicked in. We had our mixing session at Molinar. And at 5 in the evening, we did a handover. Basically, we made cheers along the day, all the time, just like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. If we could fix it in 3 minutes, we did it right away. If we couldn't, we did not spend time on going into the bits and pieces. We just made a Jira, hey, please fix that. And in the evening, we had a handover to the team in Quebec, and the team in Quebec did the mixing. And in the next morning, we had a script already running at 6 or 7 in the morning that automatically got the newest version, so that when we came in at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, the newest version was already there again, and we could continue working on that. I mean, it's like if you spend a lot of money on a big studio, you need to make the time that you have worth it, basically.
Yeah, cool. Let's touch on cinematics a little bit. So there was a lot of them, obviously. Yep. And so for your cutscene sequencer story, did you have a fixed stereo mix, or did you combine the world and objects? How did you approach all those cinematic mixes?
The cinematic mixes are actually, so we have a timeline editor, and we take care that as much as possible can be used from the game. I would even, in the future, I would even go more into this direction, because for me, the idea of a cinematic is more about, we have a 3D world, and it's just a different way of looking into it. It's just a different camera, basically, there are a lot of things too, so very simplified here. It's a different camera, but the idea is that you look into the same world, and for me, it's important that a cinematic is flawless. The transition between in-game and cinematic is really flawless and nice, and it has a good flow. That is something that I think also on the audio side is super important, that you take care of that, because there is content, there are sounds that you are getting accustomed to that are in the game, and therefore having the cutscenes done in a different way doesn't make a lot of sense. So therefore, cutscene editor at the moment, a lot of you can add those stuff. You have the possibility to add sounds to the rig or to specific bones in the rig. You have the possibilities to place sounds and attach it to something. You can there are tons of possibilities to bring it in and make that mix in a proper manner. Add the music and make it interactive. Just think about, for the people who are really into audio and having built music systems, how complicated it is to have a cinematic that is not predetermined. And if you listen to Jason or Sven's, they mention it, that we have this, you take a decision and you have like a different answer, and therefore it goes in a completely different direction, but you need to have continuous music. So Bobby and the people implementing the music did such a great job to make that still flow. I mean, listen to that next time when you do it. Just think about how tricky that is. And this is all done for 170-hour plus cutscenes.
Amazing.
Again, 170-hour plus. Never mind.
Many thanks to Stefan, our guest host Alistair, and all of the nerds at GDC. I hope you enjoyed this episode as we continue to cover more of the groundbreaking sound work in modern gaming. So if you'd like even more conversations with artists, filmmakers, and game developers on how they use technology to tell their stories, please be sure you are subscribed to us, the Dolby Creator Talks podcast. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. If you're curious to know more about the Dolby Institute, head on over to dolbyinstitute.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of this podcast, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Marroquin. Thank you for joining us.